Well, politicians in the UK are calling for calm after an explosive evening in the House of Commons. Tempers were frayed as MPs returned to Westminster on Wednesday following a historic court ruling that Parliament had been unlawfully suspended. Well, several politicians raised their anger with the UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson, and some of his responses caused even more acrimony, and the British leader has been told by MPs to mind the language he uses. Well, for more on this, we can speak to our UK correspondent Vincent McAviney. Vincent, we saw some very heated scenes inside the chamber yesterday, which has provoked a whole new debate about how people should be behaving in the mother of all parliaments, hasn't it?
Good afternoon, Tokes. Well, yeah, it's a miserable day here in London, and that really reflects the mood around Westminster, because last night was not parliamentary democracy at its best. The language, the tone, the anger in the chamber was palpable, and I've really, in 9 years covering Westminster, never really had an evening like it where on all sides people were upset, people were angry, and the Prime Minister got into quite a heated battle with opposition Labour MPs. Now, we're going to hear one of these exchanges. This is with Paula Sheriff, a Labour MP, asking the Prime Minister to please stop using words like saboteur, like traitor, like surrender when it comes to talking about Brexit.
Stand here, Mr. Speaker, under the shield of our departed friend, with many of us in this place subject to death threats and abuse every single day. And let me tell the Prime Minister that they often quote his words: surrender act, betrayal, traitor, and I, for one, am sick of it.
I have to say, Mr. Speaker, I've never heard such humbug in all my life. Because the reality is, this is a bill. This is a bill.
Now, that remark has really incensed MPs. Joe Cox, if you don't remember, was a Labour MP who was murdered in cold blood by one of her constituents with a gun shortly before the referendum in 2016. The man at the time was yelling Britain's independence and Britain first, and a crest for her now hangs in the House of Commons. Her husband, who is now raising their two children on his own, has hit out at her name being sort of brought into this, because Boris Johnson, when Joe Cox's replacement later on also begged the Prime Minister to tone it down, Boris Johnson said we should do Brexit in honour of Joe Cox. Now, Joe Cox was on the Remain side. She and her husband actually were on a flotilla on a boat here just a few days before she was killed, citing Remain, and so he has criticised the Prime Minister for using that remark. But many people just think that the atmosphere has gotten too toxic here in Westminster and that politics is really broken. Here's what the Speaker of the House of Commons, John Bercow, has had to say.
Was an atmosphere in the chamber worse than any I've known in my 22 years in the House. On both sides, passions were inflamed, angry words were uttered, the culture was toxic.
So MPs all around in a pretty bad mood, some of them, many are upset this morning. But now the question is, what happens next? Because we are still caught in this ongoing saga that doesn't seem to be getting any clearer. Boris Johnson wants this recess for his party conference, but at the moment I don't think MPs on the opposition benches, remember he doesn't have a majority at the moment, might be minded to deny him that, because they think, well, he played with parliamentary democracy, he did a prorogation which was found unlawful by the Supreme Court. They're worried that he wants to pull some more tricks and possibly even have another prorogation. So I think they're going to want to keep the government in position here in Westminster for as long as possible, cause problems for them. There is talk about bringing in more legislation to try to ensure that if the Prime Minister doesn't send that letter requesting an extension to stop a no-deal Brexit on October 31st, then possibly a senior civil servant will be forced to do that. And also they want more information about the government's Brexit plans. So it's going to be another rocky day here in Westminster.